Hey, 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 hello everyone. How are you? It is, it's like about 3 minutes after 6 p.m. and it is Sunday, November 16th. My name is Erica. I am Bernando's oldest grandchild, and we are finishing up on a series today that we've been doing every month now for quite some time. I believe we started back in May, June, July, August, September, October, November. Thanksgiving is just around the corner, and then it's going to be December, and then we're going to be into a new year. So the focus has been on basically going through chapter by chapter, Bernando's philosophy, Bernando's mentality. Hey, Devon. Bernando's exercise routine, Bernando's discipline, Bernando's top 10 foods, Bernando's honorable mentions, just his mindset and the way he lived his life on a day-to-day basis. And so now that we have been through all those chapters, there is a final chapter, as it were, at the end of his classic book, Age Less, Live More, Achieving Health and Vitality at 107 Years and Beyond. So I've been reflecting on this because I still feel like there is a lot of confusion. And, maybe I need to reword the guide that is posted on the website, and which is called, Bernando's Daily Menu and Regime. Hi, Cindy. Because, there's the letter of the law and there's the spirit of the law. So I want to say that these are guidelines. I'm trying to give you an idea of when Bernardo rose, when he exercised, when he broke his fast, how he broke his fast, whether he snacked or whether he didn't snack, the kinds of foods that were staples to him. I bring this up because someone said to me, "Oh, did Bernardo eat barley soup every single night for dinner?" I have never said that Bernardo ate soup every single night for dinner, specifically barley soup for dinner every single night. Never said that. So when you look at the daily menu and regime that I always pin, when we're on Facebook Live, I pin it to the top. Afterwards, we're on YouTube, I post the important links. Try and keep in mind that this is a general guideline. So I am hoping that this chapter 4, which he entitled A Day in the Life, in his own words, will give you some idea of what one day in his life could look like. This is not, I'm just going to leave it at that, and hopefully we'll be able to unpack this and make this easier to understand for you or any of you who may be confused about this. I've also, sort of pulled out an old interview, a Q&A that I found in a big notebook, a big scrapbook of Bernardo memorabilia and interviews and press articles and things that I keep as well that I thought might be helpful. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into it. Chapter 4, A Day in the Life. Growing old is no more than a bad habit which a busy person has no time to form. That quote is from André Maurois. As you've read through these pages, I've explained various components that I believe are necessary to live a life that is long, healthy, and joyous. So at this juncture, I thought it might be helpful to give you a brief snapshot of my typical day so that you could see how each of these pieces mesh together to create the person that I am. I usually wake at around 5 a.m. and spend some minutes in prayer. I thank my Maker for giving me another day, alive and healthy, so I can take care of my wife, Georgette. It's interesting. I've been asked on more than one occasion whether, at this age, I fear death. The answer is a resounding no. I am at peace and ready to go home at any time, should God decide that I need to come home. My only real desire is that there be someone who could step in to take care of my wife. About 30 minutes after rising, I go for a 40-minute walk. I walk in the grass and enjoy watching the world wake up around me. Within an hour or so, I'm back home preparing my superfood drink, which I enjoy with my wife. Okay, I'm going to pause here, and I want to point out that at this juncture of Bernardo's life, at the age of 107, he was living in Arizona, and Arizona, well, it does get hot, of course, and all that, but in a way, at certain times of the year, it has more of a temperate climate. Unless you're living in a place like, Flagstaff or Prescott, you're really not going to experience any snow. So I'm just pointing that out because when he says that he goes for a walk in the grass, you may be thinking, well, how is that possible, right? Because in the Northeast, for example, you can't go for a walk in the grass at any time during the year. So I just wanted to put in context where he is living at the time of this writing of this book. However, I will point out that when he was living in New York City, in the winter months when he couldn't go outside because of the inclement weather, snow, cold, rain, he had a walker, he had, different apparatus, which he actually always had, that he could use to exercise indoors. Of course, in the warmer weather in New York also, he would drive to the Rockaways, he would drive to the seaside, and he would walk up and down the shore in his bare feet, with his feet in the water, in the sand. So, again, this is one of those things where you have to accept the spirit of the law and not the letter of the law, and, use common sense and adjust things according to where you live, what your circumstances are. To be continued on page 149. After taking care of various morning activities, I make a glass of cinnamon tea with lemon, a couple of cinnamon sticks steeped in a glass of boiling water for perhaps 10 minutes. So that's one quick method he used to use if he wanted to make cinnamon tea. The other method, which you can see on the YouTube channel, is actually taking a bundle of true cinnamon sticks, putting them in a pot, covering it with water, bringing it to a boil, and then letting it simmer until the water becomes, dark. And of course, putting a lid on it so some of the steam can escape as well. But this is a great way to do it in a quick way. For lunch, I have a fresh salad, some steel-cut oatmeal, or a bowl of homemade soup, typically broccoli, tomato, or vegetable. So if you're not of, Scottish or Irish ancestry, you may be surprised to hear that Bernando, or someone like Bernando, would eat oatmeal at lunchtime. But as he points out, oatmeal being one of his favorite foods, it's very slow burning. So you can eat that if you want to. Again, he's eating something called steel-cut oats. Outside of America, in Britain, right, people actually don't eat oatmeal in a sweetened way. They eat it more as a savory. Okay, so again, just to, veer away or just do a little contrast here with the daily menu and regime that is posted for you, which was just a suggestion, right? I think I'm going to have to update this. Yeah, I'm going to update it and just put in some other possibilities here. I had written there that he would eat his lunch around 2 p.m. and that he would have barley soup, for example. He would have green tea. Sometimes he would have raw, unprocessed peanut butter on whole wheat toast. Or he might have a fresh fruit salad. You know, you get the picture. So I just am hoping that people understand that, you know, variety is a spice of life. And even someone who's disciplined and has a staple diet, they also like to switch things up, right? I don't really know of practically anyone. Well, maybe there's someone out there who just, you know, wants to eat exactly the same thing at exactly the same time of day every day, or I should say, not to dispute doing it every day, but not having some variety in there. Okay, let me go on to page 150. From mid-morning until late afternoon, I might find myself at the grocery store buying the kinds of items I've discussed in these pages, as well as fish, and on rare occasions, lamb. Also during this time, I'm often engaged in conversations or visits from friends and acquaintances, because I am a member of several groups and organizations. I stay in touch with a large number of people. One such organization is the Raw Food Group, which holds monthly meetings that I attend. My activity of choice is reading. I have a library of perhaps 1,000 books, mostly on subjects of health, diet, and history. Don't get me wrong, if there's a good baseball game on, I may well watch it. But frankly, sitting in front of the television is not my favorite activity. In the evening, I prepare dinner for my wife and me, which might be broiled fish with a side of broccoli, asparagus, or a mixed salad of greens, onions, peppers, avocado, and lettuce. I often attend meetings or go out with friends. I seldom turn down a restaurant or birthday party invitation simply because I so enjoy meeting new people and seeing new places. I was recently invited to Sedona, a lovely town in northern Arizona, where I received a warm reception from many wishing to know about me and my lifestyle. Curious people truly warm my heart, because it is through the door of curiosity that change can occur. That is why, as I write these lines, I am so looking forward to the new people I'll meet during the process of getting this book into the hands of those who need it. These thoughts excite me more than I can say. At bedtime, sleep comes easily. In fact, my wife tells me that because I don't snore and seldom move, she has to check on me to make sure I'm still among the living. In the morning, I wake up refreshed and ready for a new adventure, this amazing thing called life. So that was page 151. I'm going to keep going because he shares some final thoughts. Final thoughts. I know beyond any doubt that the concepts I've outlined in this book work. I know this because I've seen them work in myself and in many others with which I've shared these things, from my own children to friends and other acquaintances. I truly believe that by thinking, exercising, and eating properly, anyone can extend both the number of their years and the quality of those years. Disease, pain, loss of physical strength, and mental acuity, these things are not inevitable, no matter what your parents or friends or the television may lead you, or I should say may have led you to believe. I wish I could wave a magic wand and give to you the same determination and knowing that I have. Many people over the years have asked me for advice and I have shared it freely. They all listen, but only a relative few actually put into practice what I suggest. And yet, it isn't difficult at all. It doesn't take a lot of money or an inordinate amount of time. It only takes a decision that the past doesn't need to equal the future. The way you think and handle emotional issues, the amount of quality of the exercise you get, and the food you put in your mouth are all based on habits formed by watching or listening to others. Just because you've done something one way for a long time does not mean that it's the only way, especially if it isn't serving you. If you are aging gracefully, feel good about yourself, and have all the vitality that you want, then that's wonderful. Keep doing whatever it is that you're doing. But if you feel you could be better, or if you see the warning signs of disease and discomfort in your life, then take hold of the wheel and change direction. I hope that at least some of the things in this book ring true for you. When you are wandering the aisles at your local grocery store, I hope you will find yourself spending more time in the produce section and less time staring through the frosty glass at the TV dinners. And on some beautiful spring day, I hope you'll at least contemplate taking off your shoes and socks and go feel the grass between your toes, watch a caterpillar for a moment, and forget that the taxes are coming due. I want you to have what I have if you'll only take it. May the world's old and sick never leave your lips again when referring to yourself. Here's to a long, healthy, and vital life for everyone, everywhere. So that is how Bernando concludes his book, Age Less, Live More, Achieving Health and Vitality. So this is a 107-year-old encouraging you who are probably not 107 if you're watching this. I could be wrong. There could be a 107-year-old out there. But most of the people that Bernando was talking to and the most of people that were in his audience were half his age or sometimes even a quarter of his age, who often were not even in as good of shape mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually as he was, because what do we say now? Self-care, self-love. Bernando had a level of self-care and self-love that was really off the charts. He always put his health first. Always, always, always put his health first. So I just want to go back here and just review some of the points that Bernando is mentioning up here. So again, he's saying from mid-morning and late afternoon, I might find myself at the grocery store buying the kinds of items I've discussed in these pages, as well as fish and on rare occasions lamb. So here's a man who is in his early 100s and he's doing his errands. He's doing his shopping. He is self-sufficient. He is autonomous. He's not depending on somebody else to do that for him. There's a really cute video of, it's just a small clip of Bernando in the supermarket in Arizona, because I went with him one time and I just filmed him shopping. And the spring he's got is in his step. He's also using he has a cane with him, but he's barely using it. He's just kind of using it, or he has it with him as a precaution. So, you know, when I went to the grocery store with my grandfather, I'm not the one who did the shopping. My grandfather did the shopping. My grandfather knew what he wanted and he knew what to get. And to that end, that's the beautiful thing about the lifestyle or the diet that he's recommending you give a try, or that he followed himself, is a lot of these items are available in your average grocery store these days, probably more so than they were, you know, when he kind of started on this whole thing. So in other words, you can get extra virgin olive oil in the grocery store now. You can get true cinnamon in the grocery store. You can get plenty of fresh produce in the grocery store. You can even get fresh squeezed juices. You can get varieties of nuts. These are things that he would use as snacks. You can get green tea. Bernando was a big fan of green tea. He consumed green tea heavily, right? Bananas, quinoa. You couldn't always get quinoa in the main grocery store, but you can certainly get that now because now it's become mainstream. Brown rice, for example, fresh blueberries. Let's see what else. Barley, pearled barley. Of course, a lot of grocery stores now have a fish, a frozen section, I should say, things that are on ice, things that need to be kept cold, like fish. So we are so lucky, we are still so lucky in America that we can go to one place and we can get all the things that we need in one place. And that we have the option also to buy things that are closer to organic. Of course, if you do have the possibility of belonging to a food co-op, or a CSA, where maybe you have produce delivered to you every week and support a farmer that way, or are lucky enough to have access to a farmer's market, that's fantastic because usually, the food, if the farmer's market is legit and the people are there are legit, sometimes things are picked that morning or things are picked the day before out of the ground, which is really how it should be. Produce shouldn't be laying around, picked ahead of time for weeks on end. So this is the beauty of Bernando's regime that he's sharing. Okay, then he goes on, and I want to point out that I think this is where the confusion comes in, because a lot of people want to claim Bernando as a pure vegan, as a pure raw foodist. No, he was a member of a raw food group. In fact, the name of those lovely people who I had a chance and opportunity to meet several times, they were George and Peggy Dowd, and they used to live on Dobson Ranch. And when Bernando first moved to Arizona, let me see, I think he got there he went for a visit, was it 2001, right? I think by 2002, he was settled there. And he was curious, and he was reading the local papers and so on, the little magazines, and he saw this announcement for a monthly meeting for a raw food potluck. And he thought, I need to meet these people. Because again, when you consider what a huge role fresh fruits and vegetables played in Bernando's life and his lifestyle, he would say, don't give your kids candy, don't give them junk. Give them ripe fruit, fresh fruit, fruit that is naturally sweet, right? Because it hasn't been picked too early. Don't give them candy bars. Don't give them soda pop. Don't get them hooked on that stuff, right? Because he understood that children getting into these good habits very young and not getting hooked on fast food was important for their development, important for their brain, important for their gut health, right? Important for their longevity, and also important to help them avoid the pandemic of diabetes, right? There's so many children in this country that are diabetic at this point by the age of 10 because no one is making sure at home that they're getting the fresh fruits and vegetables that they need. So all this to say, that's why he went to the raw food group, and he had a lovely time there. I went a couple of times. Everyone would bring a dish. It was a huge spread outside in their beautiful garden, and all kinds of, fresh dishes, and it was wonderful. So he appreciated that, but you'll notice that he's mentioning also in here that he ate fish. He did eat fish, and that on occasion, on rare occasions, he ate lamb. Now, I've discussed these things again over on the YouTube channel, so if you're watching this on YouTube, you can check that out. There's a video and where I talk about why and when Bernando ate lamb. So Bernando was raised as a Catholic, and in Catholicism around Easter, as Christ did in Palestine, when you were coming out of winter over there, there wasn't that much to eat, right? But people kept livestock, and people would eat lamb. They still do, or at least they did up until recently. So, sort of emulating, right, Christ that he admired so much, as a Catholic, you'll find this is a very common dish that's even offered in restaurants and so forth. If you go out for brunch during Easter, usually they'll offer lamb or they'll offer salmon, right? That's usually the story. So this is the reason, why he had lamb. Also, as far as meats go, it's considered to be, the healthiest of meats, right? So that's that. I'm just explaining. I'm not offering any judgment. I'm just explaining what's going on here. And of course, he was also a seaman. He spent a lot of time at sea. He also owned his own fish and chips place at one point in Jersey City. And, fish in general is considered to be healthier than eating red meat. He didn't eat steaks. He didn't eat pork. He didn't even eat chicken. He didn't eat eggs. This was his choice. He knew how to prepare those things because he was a chef. He was a trained chef in the culinary arts. But for his own personal consumption, he leaned towards eating fatty fish like salmon, for example, like sardines. Those were his favorites, and didn't eat, the other meats and stuff that I just mentioned. It's interesting also when you think about how sharp his memory was, because fatty fish like that contain long chain fatty acids, right? Which is good for the brain, which is very good for the brain. So there was a period I remember here where people were like, oh, the Japanese are so smart, right? Japanese children are so smart. They seem to be smarter than American children. That can be attributed to the consumption of fish that is found in the Japanese diet, because essentially that is brain food. That is feeding the brain. That's very different than eating Skittles or chomping on Hershey's bars or drinking Coca-Cola, sweet sugary drinks, and eating foods that are empty of calories. It makes a difference, what a child gets as they're growing up, for certain. And also seaweed, things like that are also very good for your hair, for your brain, for your nervous system. So I just wanted to mention that. Then he goes on, he is also pointing out here that he belongs to a lot of different groups and organizations. So he is pointing out that he is very connected socially, right? He's not a 107-year-old little old man staying at home as a shut-in with no friends and nowhere to go and nothing to look forward to, right? He goes out in the evening with friends, and he was a great dresser. So when he would go out, of course, he'd be wearing a suit and, have his Stacey Adams shoes on. And he was very, very dapper. He was always very dapper. So these are like the little things in life that make life worth living, right? So that was Bernando. I remember when I went to go visit him in his, let me see, it was like, I believe it was about his 111th year or so, around that time. And he was living in, an old folks home at that time. Basically, My brother and I had a completely different impression. We thought that he was basically living in his own apartment and, you know, the way he always did. But once I arrived at that place, I was like, what are you doing here? You don't belong here. So eventually we got him out of there and he got his own apartment again. Because, of course, when you live in a place like that, it just seems that there's an endless supply of medications and drugs that they're giving the senior population. It's quite staggering to watch. Perhaps people need those medications, right? But perhaps they don't need quite as many medications as they're being given. Also, when you're living in a senior facility, he was not happy because most of what was being passed off as food was pre-made soups and so on that was coming out of big tin cans. So there was actually very little fresh food being cooked from scratch at that place. So that was something else that he didn't like very much. So everyone needs good, nutritious food, regardless of whether you're a child or whether you're in middle age or whether you're, you know, quote, a senior citizen. It's extremely, extremely important. But again, and also, okay, so that's my point here. So he had a very, very active social life. At the time of writing this book, he was still living with his wife. Georgette was still alive. And, you know, they had a nice little apartment. I visited them there as well. He had his kitchen, he had his living room, he had a washer dryer. You know, they had everything they needed to live an independent lifestyle, and that's what they did. But again, you know, having friends, having a place to go out, having mental stimulation, being able to share your thoughts with another, being able to have a laugh, all these different things contribute to our well-being and to our longevity and to our feeling of connectedness. It's extremely important. Okay, he goes on to say that his activity of choice is reading. And he says that he's got a library of about 1,000 books. And, of course, the thing that he's interested in reading about is health, diet, and he was also a history buff. He loved reading about Black history. He knew a lot about Native American history, actually, as well. And he did have a lot of books. So he always was curious, and he was always, you know, getting new books and reading up on that because he felt it was his duty. He felt it was his responsibility. He felt it was something that he should be doing, but he was also genuinely interested because, again, remember, Bernando was a natural health consultant. People would come and ask Bernando his advice all the time. Now, once he got into his hundreds, he wasn't doing Swedish massage on people anymore. He had studied and gotten his certificate from the Swedish Institute. He had studied with Dr. Richard Schultz, and he had gotten his natural consultant certificate. He had studied herbology. He was a doctor of podiatry. He was a classically trained chef in the French culinary arts. And of course, he was also raised by his own father, Bernando Lapallo Sr., who was a medical doctor and also an herbalist on how to eat and when to eat. So all these different things, you know, contributed to his excitement about life and his desire to share that with others. Now, he was a baseball fan. You know, he was a lifelong Yankees fan, and I've talked about that before. And of course, here in New York, this was the home of the Yankees. And he would often go to baseball games. If he couldn't make it to a game, that was something he did enjoy. He did enjoy watching the ball game. But that was about the sum and substance of it. You know, after the game was over, he turned off the television. He wasn't someone who was a news junkie or was addicted to the news or, you know, anything that might cause an undue amount of mental distress. It's not that he was, you know, unaware of what was going on in the world, but he was really very, hi Michael Lamb, how are you? He was really very, disciplined about his routine. So in addition to his physical hygiene, his mental hygiene, his spiritual hygiene, that was something that he took care of, that he guarded, that he protected. My grandfather, Bernando, was a very, very positive guy. People loved to be around him because you would just spend some time with him and you just feel better just even hanging out with him. Even if you weren't taking superfood or walking a mile and a half a day or eating as many fruits and vegetables as he was, just by being in his presence, you felt uplifted. That was the wonderful thing about being around him. Okay, so now going on with this day of his, he says, in the evening, I prepared dinner for my wife and me, which might be broiled fish with a side of broccoli or asparagus or a mixed salad of greens, onions, peppers, avocado, and lettuce. So he was a huge, huge fan of green vegetables. Bernando loved green vegetables, and I have inherited this love of green vegetables from Bernando. So, loved broccoli, loved asparagus. Also, he could be found, especially for holidays, right, preparing kale, collard greens. He loved spinach, and of course, he would always use onions, and he would use garlic in that. He would say that garlic and onions were cousins. He would chop that up. You've heard this before. A little olive oil, a little extra virgin olive oil, and do a very, very light saute on that. And then, of course, he would have a superfood. Now, what does superfood have in it? Superfood has a lot of greens in it. It has, spirulina, it has algae, it's got all these different greens in it in concentrated form. And then as he's pointing out here, also at lunchtime, he might also have another, a different salad and so forth. If we look on the daily menu and regime, as I have typed it up, but like I said, I'm going to update this so it makes a little bit more sense for people. So, again, he's having his superfood, he's breaking his fast with that. Also fresh fruit salad, or salad, a regular salad, or his health salad, right? The cabbage salad that he would have, which would have 2 types of cabbage in it, and celery and carrots and red peppers and onions, and be pickled in a honey and vinegar emulsion, right? And then dress that with olive oil and then put fresh sliced tomato on that, or put fresh sliced avocado on it, or maybe both. And he would have that. So he was always refreshing his body with these types of highly nutritious foods that are satisfying. Okay, I've already talked about his social life. He brings it up again here. I often attend meetings or go out with friends. I seldom turn down a restaurant or birthday party invitation, simply because I so enjoy meeting new people and seeing new places. And he talks about going to Sedona and how much he enjoyed that, and how much he enjoyed meeting the people there. He must have given a talk there, and how much, he enjoyed his visit there. So although he was certainly capable of being happy in his own company, he also, again, enjoyed that stimulation that came from meeting new people and social interactions, and he had wonderful social skills. Wonderful social skills. He was really a model of that. He really did practice the golden rule. He really did try and treat people the way they would like to be treated, polite, respectful to people. Really a delight to be around. Okay, then he says here at the bottom that curious people truly warm my heart, because it is through the door of curiosity that change can occur. That is why, as I write these lines, I so look forward to the new people I'll meet during the process of getting this book into the hands of those who need it. These thoughts excite me more than I can say. So you probably know that Bernando did a lot of public speaking. Once people caught wind, of his age and saw this centenarian, the super centenarian, past the age of 100, well-dressed, sharp, beautiful skin, and able to stand and talk for an hour or more on these different topics for the lectures that he would prepare to address different groups and different people. This was a very exciting prospect for him. Why? Because he genuinely wanted everyone to be healthy. He genuinely wanted people to have the same health and quality of life that he enjoyed, because life is more enjoyable when we don't struggle with the container, with the vessel that we are in. So he points out here again that, he shared his lifestyle with so many people, but really only a few people would try and implement the things that he was talking about. I think this speaks to also the age in which a human being is introduced to these principles of health. In general, when we get older, when we're in our 40s or 50s or 60s or 70s, we become set in our ways, and we may not be willing to try new things, even though they could be good for us, good for our brain, good for our circulation, good for our digestion. So this was, if I could say he had any frustrations, this was a frustration for him, because he really, really wanted to see people have a quality of life. So in his later years, he would always say, got to teach the children, got to get to the kids, because so many of these children are being turned into diabetics. This is very, very serious. And because of, his own children, because of his own grandchildren, that would be me, and even his great-grands, and introducing superfood, for example, to them, Dr. Schultz's superfood, I should say, no pesticides, no soy, 100% vegan, no skimping on materials, 100% organic and wild-crafted. I can tell you, when you take his products, you are going to notice the difference. Getting stuff from the retail store, there's absolutely no comparison, because there's no fillers in it. But at any rate, that's part of the reason why he felt so good, is because he had optimal nutrition. A lot of diseases, and there have been studies on this, can be traced to a lack of optimal nutrition. This can be confusing, again, for Americans in particular, because we have access to so much food, but we've got access to so much food that is empty in calories, that's cheap, right? That's not actually giving us what we need. So that's something to bear in mind there. Then he says at bedtime, he rarely, unless something was really on his mind, would stay up at night tossing and turning and worrying about all those things. When my grandfather's head hit the pillow, he was out. He was out like a light, right? And would just sleep undisturbed until the morning, when he would get up at about 5 a.m. or so. So he was an early to bed, early to rise guy. I mean, he was in bed by 9 p.m. Unless he was out making a speech, he was in bed, because he was a working man for so many years. When you're working in hospitality and you're the chef, you got to go in the kitchen, you got to prepare all those things. And after you've been standing on your feet for, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours a day, you're ready to go home, put your feet up and relax and sleep well. And in fact, I think I caught a glimpse of him one time, passed out. I think I was spending the night, and I went in to say goodnight to him. But when I went in to say goodnight to him, he was already out cold, and he didn't move a muscle. So this is something to emulate, right? Of course, he didn't drink coffee. He didn't drink coffee. He didn't drink these kinds of drinks. He didn't keep things that would keep him up at night. Okay, so let's get to this again. He talks about the concepts in the book, and he knows that they work beyond a shadow of a doubt because, you know, he shared these things. So again, thinking, exercising, eating properly, not overeating, staying properly hydrated, and all these things are really important to a quality lifestyle. That being said, again, I just want to say that you have to use your own common sense. You have to listen to your own body. If you're eating something and it just doesn't agree with you, just because Bernando did it, that doesn't mean that you should do it, right? He would say that the chemicals in everyone's body is different, so you need to pay attention to that. Maybe also you might want to work with a functional medicine doctor, or maybe you're working with a nutritionist, right? If you're in the process of trying to improve your diet and change your diet and change your lifestyle. Let me see. Of course, again, he also brings up emotional issues, mental issues, right? We'd probably call this mental health these days, or emotional health. And he talks about exercise, and all of this being on the habits that you form. All these types of things being based on the habits that you form. And if you're fortunate, you know, you've got parents when you're growing up that help instill in you good habits, so that once you get out in the world, you are maintaining that. You know, so many times, you know, if you're working in a school, especially with students that are older, let's say they're 18 or 19 or 20, and they're finally out there, you know, trying to make inroads into their life at college, 9 times out of 10, you'll see that their lifestyle habits and their choices can be detrimental, you know, not getting enough sleep, not eating properly, eating fast food, eating junk food, not sitting down, you know, for a meal, not spending time to be calm and to think and, you know, to meditate, running around, burning the candle at both ends. This is something he never did. He never did that. He always took care of his health. So it's something important to consider, and something that if you have the opportunity to influence a young person in a positive way, to model that and share this experiences with them, because people need other people to look up to. Okay, let me see here. All right, so now I just kind of want to go over, I found this Q&A that I did back in 2018. Now, if I'm not mistaken, there used to be this gentleman, very nice guy. His name was Paul. I'm trying to remember Paul's last name. But he was a raw foodist, and he had a raw food health show. But he invited me on because he had different questions that he wanted to know about Bernando. And I tried my best of my ability to answer these questions. So I thought it'd be fun to read them and share them with you here in the last 9 minutes or so of this live stream and broadcast that we have. So he asked me 8 different questions. The first question was, how did Bernando keep the gray out of his hair? Why didn't Bernando have gray hair? He didn't dye his hair. He did not dye his hair. My answer, trace minerals, specifically magnesium. I remember clearly him telling me magnesium keeps the color in the hair. And his diet was rich in magnesium. For example, dark chocolate, as in raw, unrefined chocolate, dark leafy green vegetables, the Superfood Plus that he used to consume, nuts and beans all contain magnesium in them. He also practiced a stress-free life. Stress will make your hair turn gray because it depletes your body of magnesium that the body needs for skin, hair, the nervous system, bones, your energy, and so forth. So I'm sure you've been in a situation where you felt very stressed out and you immediately felt it in your scalp. You immediately could feel the stress, right? And so You'll see that sometimes when someone loses a loved one, overnight they go into a state of, quote, shock or a state of stress, and their hair will become gray overnight. I don't know if you've experienced that or if you've seen other people experience that, but it's a real thing. So the body has different reserves of minerals as well as vitamins that are needed to keep things running. And magnesium is a really important one. Calcium and magnesium, in fact. Magnesium is used for, I think, 300 different bodily functions. All right. He also used olive oil on his hair about once a week as a pomade. He advised men not to use hair gels as they are alcohol-based and dry out hair. Also, ladies, be careful about that so you can keep a full head of hair. Bernando had 2/3 of his hair when he passed away at the age of 114. 2. How did Bernando eat when traveling from home? What did he eat during day trips? Did he snack? Answer. Bernando ate the same way traveling as he did at home. Oatmeal, fish, brown rice, salads, green vegetables, green tea, soups, and so on. The beauty of his diet is that it's obtainable just about everywhere. If he had a day trip, when stopping at a restaurant, he'd order the same dishes that corresponded to his regime. As for snacks, they consisted of fresh fruit. He ate at least 2 bananas a day. But actually, when I was living with him the last couple of months, he ate more than just 2 bananas. He ate several bananas a day. As a matter of fact, I was like, wow, I can barely keep these bananas in stock. I was going to the store down the street and I was buying, new bunches of bananas. I mean, he was eating. I'm not suggesting you do this. This is just an observation. I'm just sharing this because here, in these notes here, I put he ate about 2 bananas per day, but if you count his superfood smoothie, that's already 1. And if you count the banana that he ate as a snack, that's already 2. But I'm pointing out that towards the end there, he was like a little monkey. Okay. He also would have a slice of cantaloupe, for example, or he would have his fresh fruit salad. He would eat nuts. He would eat Brazil nuts, almonds, cashews, peanuts, also macadamia nuts. You get the picture. He had nuts out on a coffee table for guests when they came by. If you were wise, you'd get some of his fresh fruit salad that would be stashed in a big container in the fridge, which he made with fresh apples, green and red grapes, honeydew melon, cantaloupe, blueberries, and if you wanted to get fancy, if pineapples were ripe and in season, he would even put fresh pineapple chunks in there, which was delicious. 3. What did he eat if he ever got sick? Answer. Grandpa never had a cold or the flu. This is due to the fact that his strategy was preventative. Food is thy medicine, right? Or let food be thy medicine, that old phrase. He lived by that. He ingested garlic daily, using it in sautés for green vegetables and his smoothies. So I've talked about garlic on here before. So garlic is antibacterial. Garlic is antiviral, right? So he would put that in a superfood, and as I've already mentioned, his green vegetables, he would use onions and garlic to saute his, fresh greens with, and he did that all the time. And he was generous with it as well. Let me see. So he ingested garlic daily, using it in sautés for green vegetables and his smoothies. He was never constipated. He would say disease lives in the gut. If you feel like you're coming down with something, in addition to getting proper rest, take intestinal formula number 1 or 2. So Dr. Schultz has got different intestinal formulas, and he also has a bowel detox, right? Just to help you eliminate and to clean yourself out. Bernando would say that if you're eating 3 times a day, you should be passing stool 3 times a day. You should be eliminating, at least once for every meal that you have. keep your colon clean. Very important. Because if you don't, then all the things that are staying there in your colon that are rotting and are putrefying, well, where is it going to go, right? It's toxic, and you're going to feel lousy. Question 4 was interesting. He asked, did Bernando have a cure for eczema? Well, I will say this, that, magnesium, again, and calcium are important for healthy skin, but if someone came to him and they had this, sort of situation going on, he would make a paste that he called a cure-all, and he would make it using raw honey and garlic, right? Fresh garlic paste, and he would also use true cinnamon powder, and he would mix that up, and then he would apply it, right to that area, right? That area that had the eczema that was on the person that was feeling discomfort. So that's very interesting. If you don't have time, just apply raw honey to the skin and let it absorb. Honey never spoils, and it rebuilds skin. I use it myself on cold sores. So honey is amazing. Honey is great for, skin problems, for acne, for burns, for all different kinds of things. And if you remember, when we were talking about honey previously in the book, Bernando was saying that honey was one of the things that was found in the tombs of Pharaoh. So honey has been known to be an amazing health product for a long, long time. 5, the question was about dementia. Did Bernando have dementia? That was basically the question. My answer: prevention is everything. Among the compendium of activities and diet regimes that would help us are avoiding sugar and artificial sweeteners. If you want something sweet, use honey, or use true cinnamon, or eat ripe fruits. Sugar in excess destroys blood vessels, impeding circulation. That's why diabetes is such a killer, because the vessels that are in the eyes, that are in the ears, right? The kidneys, and even the brain, right? So dementia can also be attributed, or has been attributed, just to poor circulation in the brain. There have been studies on just the crazy amount of sugar that Americans eat, right? Processed refined sugar, and this link to diabetes. So one of the things that happens when you're a diabetic, or can happen, is that your eyesight can dim and that your hearing can go. Why is that? That is because there are little tiny blood vessels in your ears and also in your eyes. And blood is the currency throughout the body. The heart is running because it's pumping blood. The brain is running, the circulation is running. You're able to do what you need to do because the nutrition that you've ingested is now being delivered to the different major organs in the body, right? The liver, the spleen, the kidneys, all of these different parts of our bodies require nutrition, the skin. So that's why it's so important to try and minimize the sugar intake, because it can have a detrimental effect on your eyesight and on your hearing, amongst other things. Very, very interesting. People don't really put that together, but there have been studies done on that as well. Then he goes on to say, or then I should say, I go on to say, I'm going to backtrack here. Sugar in excess destroys blood vessels, impeding circulation. That's why diabetes is such a killer. The eyes, the ears, the kidneys are all affected by lack of blood delivering the crucial nutrients. Exercise, this will keep your blood circulating to your brain. Also doing crossword puzzles, reading a book, getting out and socializing. This is all very important, right? These things help us remember who we are, and it helps keep us sharp. Doing crossword puzzles, reading a book, eating fresh blueberries, eating grapes, particularly dark grapes, purple grapes, strawberries, black beans, raw unprocessed peanut butter, barley. All these foods are really good brain foods. All these foods can help support your brain health, but sleep. Sleep is something that is very neglected in America, because people seem to pride themselves on how little sleep they need, how sleep deprived they are, and that they were still able to do all these things even with the sleep deprivation. But this is craziness. This is not the way our lives were meant to be. And of course here, I see and you see people literally drinking liters of coffee per day just to try and keep going. And then of course, then when they get home at night, the caffeine kicks in when you're trying to go to sleep, and then you can't sleep properly, and then you get up the next day and you start the whole cycle again, and you drink more coffee in order to stay awake. So this is because, you know, the cortex in your brain, right, where sleep and memory are, I should say, yeah, memory is related to sleep. If you don't have enough sleep, then you're not going to be able to remember, where did I put my keys? What am I doing? Why did I come in this room? Oh, I can't remember what I was supposed to do. I'm so tired. I went to the store to get a couple of things, and of course I forgot the one thing that I went in there to get. This rushing, you know, this whole lifestyle, which is unnatural, quite frankly. One of the beautiful things about meditation, or just sitting quietly and thinking about your day, is that, you know, everything calms down, and in this kind of state of relaxation, you remember different things. You have realizations about different things. So sleep and relaxation is extremely important, and it's something that Bernando made sure that he did and had on a daily basis. Okay, what else can I say? Yeah, there is nothing to praise about being sleep deprived, nothing. Sleeping, this will keep your memory sharp. So his short-term memory, really, the last, you know, few months that I was with him, his short-term memory was going, but he knew it was going. That was the amazing thing about him. So this is a personal observation. Take it as you will. It seems that, you know, sort of the loss of long-term memory, or I should say short-term memory, you know, this cognitive decline can also be a sign that maybe someone is ready to exit. Maybe someone is on their way out. It can also be a sign that someone's not getting enough sleep, and that someone's not getting enough exercise, and that someone's getting not enough nutrition. So, you know, take this with a grain of salt. Take the best and leave the rest. However, I did notice, because we had a great conversation the night before he passed away, about things that he was remembering approximately 100 years earlier. It was amazing where he was, the names of the people that were there. Incredible memory. So if you take care of your body will take care of you, right? If you take care of the different organs in your body, they will take care of you. So just something to keep in mind. Now, to that end, just as an anecdote here, he and his friend Gloria Swanson, the movie star, they both shared a dislike of sugar in common. They actually met in Paris in the late 20s due to a mutual friend, Louis Armstrong. And this is something, she was a health nut. She had beautiful skin, and she was known to shun sugar, which of course, that was not done back in the day, and still not today. So this is something that they bonded on, and I thought that was quite interesting and amazing. It was also, Gloria Swanson also recommended the cologne called Zinzini that Bernando would wear for, I mean, decades and decades and decades. He had a bottle of Zinzini right up until the end. Okay, asthma. This person asked me, what did Bernando recommend for asthma? So take this again, take this, with a grain of salt, right? You should, consult your physician. But that being said, he had a patient who had emphysema. She was, barely able to breathe. This person was a chain smoker, and I think they had been smoking about 3 packs of cigarettes a day, literally one cigarette after another. And when he met her and someone said, can you help her out? She was bedridden and barely able to breathe. So he started having her take grape seed extract. So provided that you're not taking blood thinners, right? Because grape seed, the seed in the grapes are natural blood thinners. So you have to be mindful of that. If you're on some kind of medication where you're taking blood thinners, you don't want to take grapeseed extract, right? Because then you're going to be in trouble. Your blood's not going to clot at all. But however, this can be helpful in some cases because it helps open up the respiratory passages. If you ever looked at grape leaves, right, you'll notice that they're in the shape of human lungs. Very, very interesting. You'll notice that walnuts look like the brain. You'll notice that carrots cut sideways look like eyes. So there are these little clues here about things that can be beneficial for us to consume based on what our nutritional needs are and how our body is functioning. Another thing that he did or recommended one time, he had a woman call him who got in touch with him who was at her wit's end because her son had asthma. He was young and he wasn't able to, basically go outside and run and play and do all those things that other kids could do because he would have an asthma attack. So Grandpa suggested to put a teaspoon of sea salt on his tongue after drinking 2 full glasses of water, right? And then drink another full glass of water to wash down the sea salt. So what does this do? This helps open up the blood vessels in the lungs, right? This helps open up the blood vessels in the lungs. And so as a result of this, apparently, this child was, jumping up and down and happy because he wasn't struggling with breathing. This is all very interesting. Again, the disclaimer here is to use your common sense. If you're using something to help you breathe, I am not suggesting that you stop taking that, but this is something that you might find useful. Also, you can look into increasing vitamin D. Vitamin D is also very important for a strong respiratory system. Of course, back in the old days, they would give people sun baths. In other words, people that had weakened bones or just had kind of weak digestion or were just sort of sickly, they would be taken to the solarium and they would just sit in the sun in these sort of, clinics because the sun helps the body produce vitamin D. Vitamin D is something that has to be, taken or has to be stimulated to be produced by the body through a certain amount of sunshine on your skin for at least a half an hour a day. The flip side of not having enough vitamin D is depression. So you'll notice in countries where they don't get a lot of sun, or maybe it's dark 6 months out of the year, people tend to be a little depressed, right? And what do people do when they're depressed? Well, maybe they indulge in more drinking. Of course, there has been some realization, they call it SAD, of people having lights and indoor lights during these darker months of the year, and just to sit in front of the lights and absorb the light to help improve mood. So there is something to that. Again, if you're living in a place where it's dark 6 months out of the year, then one of these lamps could be a good option for you. Okay, then the person asked about food allergies, right? What did Bernando think about food allergies? And in Bernando, his response was heal the gut. That you should heal the gut, you should stop eating processed foods, and that you should try doing a bowel cleanse. Again, recommending Dr. Schultz's, which has got many herbal products that can help you, clean everything out, right? And then different ways in which you can try rebuilding your stomach lining, a healthy stomach lining. So, of course, a lot of people have to be careful of gluten. They have to be careful because they may have a bad reaction. They may have what's the word I'm looking for? Celiac disease. These are real things that happen to people. A lot of times these things are happening to people because the food that we're eating is highly processed. There's a lot of chemicals and preservatives in there that shouldn't be in there, right? And we're having a reaction. So, cleaning out your bowels, keeping your bowels clean while you drill down into pinpointing what ails you, that's the first step. Okay. I had an interesting conversation with a woman whose stomach lining was shot to hell. And she ended up rebuilding her stomach lining through taking real vitamin C. I'm not talking about ascorbic acid because ascorbic acid is chemically produced. I'm talking about real vitamin C. For example, yes, Dr. Schultz offers a form of vitamin C, which I take actually on a regular basis because I find that it helps keep my gums healthy, which keeps my teeth healthy, right? I'm less prone to root canals and things like that. It also keeps my nails healthy and keeps my skin healthy. Oh, this I slammed my finger in a car door, so don't worry about that. And also perhaps looking into a probiotic that is dairy-free or that is sugar-free, or eating foods like kimchi, right? Eating things that are going to improve your gut health, and again, avoiding things like, gluten and so on that are not going to be helping you, and taking the time to read labels, right? Because a lot of times for people that are allergic to gluten, again, or have celiac, they just kind of sneak these different things in as fillers, and there's no consideration there for the reaction that the consumer buying the product may have. So that's why it's really, really important to be your own advocate and to take the time, to ask questions and read labels and try and, again, eat organic as often as you can, the way nature intended. Okay. All right. So basically, when someone has got some severe gut problems, there's actually holes. There's little perforations that are inside the stomach lining, and what ends up happening, the stomach and the intestines, they need to be healed so your foods, don't leak out into the bloodstream before they are properly digested and properly processed. This is really, really important. So also chewing your food thoroughly, chewing your food, sitting down, having a meal, chewing your food. Why? Because there are so many different enzymes in your saliva, right? The majority of the breakdown of your food happens before it even hits your gut, even before it hits your intestines. So when you see, teenagers inhaling their food in 5 minutes. Encourage them to slow down and eat more slowly, and maybe bring some things that are more tasty so they actually want to sit down and eat their food and have a good meal, right? So many of the things that we eat today, again, are so processed. No wonder people just want to inhale these things. All right, so it's 7:18 now. I've been talking for quite some time. Again, today's material was from Bernando's book, Age Less, Live More, Achieving Health and Vitality at 107 Years and Beyond. We were reading what we referred to as the last chapter, or chapter 4, A Day in the Life, where he shares an example of what a typical day for him might look like, when he's rising, and some thoughts and his habits. And there you have it. So that's what I've got for you today. I just want to see who's on here, and I want to thank the people that tuned in today. So I want to thank Devon Hoskins. I want to thank Cindy Larson. I want to thank Sony Ade. I want to thank Susie Johnson for being here. I want to thank Jean Woods, as always, for being here. We've got Conrad Barnes in the house, who is watching. We've got Michael Lamb. We've got Claire Stewart. We've got Raquel May Mendelo Rain is watching. You're very welcome, Jean. And that's what I've got for you today. So December is just around the corner. The year is coming to a close. I'm thinking about maybe doing something, just kind of putting some thoughts together and, reminiscing, or just sharing some things about, sort of Bernando and the holidays, and, how he would cook and so on for this type of year. Just some memories revolving around that. Leave a comment below and let me know what you might like to hear about. You're welcome, Cindy. And then I guess that's all I've got for you for now. As always, I'll put important links here. And, thank you very much. Have a great holiday season. Try not to overeat. It's tempting. You can do like Bernando did. It's so easy to put on weight at this time of year with all the very rich, sugary foods. So a trick that Bernando would do is that he would eat before he left to go to a special occasion or a party. So he'd already be sort of well-fed and satisfied, which will cut down on maybe, let's be honest, how many Doritos chips you're eating, how many dips you're having, right? How much of that little junk food or snack food that you're having at the holiday party table, right? No shade, right? Just tea. So just things, so when we get to 2026, you're not 10 or 15 pounds heavier as you get through the holiday season. All right, so I'm going to sign off now. Again, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for subscribing. Please leave a comment. Please share. And if you aren't subscribed already to Bernando's YouTube channel, please do so, because, again, Facebook is deleting these live videos after 30 days. This is their new policy. Good night now.